Shock Piece: The Search for Freedom, a novel by C. Nguyen. Chapter 38. Garlic and Fish Sauce. Are you going to do it? Trin asked her sister. Rolling her eyes upward in a gesture of befuddlement, she repeated her question. Are you, Kim? What do you think? Shall we? It's our way, isn't it? Can she do anything to us? Kim paused a few seconds in wondering, and then came back with more determination. What can she do to us anyhow? Are you game enough, Trin? She challenged her younger sister, trying to mask a trace of nervousness in her voice. Yeah, I'm game. Why not? If it comes to the worst, we don't have to open the door, Trin whispered, a little frightened and a little excited. She was in awe of what her sister was suggesting they do. The pair were standing in their kitchen and looking toward the front door with apprehension. In Kim's hand was an old aluminium frying pan with stubborn, greasy stains on its sides and a loose handle that rattled when the older girl put it forcefully down on the electric stove. Yes, they were going to fight, and Kim meant it. A couple of fresh garlic cloves were sitting cozily on the plastic chopping board next to the stove. About a dozen small fish were draining in the colander by the sink, and some of their remaining scales sparkled in the light reflecting through the kitchen window. The sisters were about to fry their fish for the family dinner tonight. The teenagers did not mind this daily task of preparing a meal, as they had often used to do it back home. But after they moved here a few weeks ago into the uppity suburb of Top Ryde, they dreaded taking the special step of frying garlic in oil before every stir-fry dish in their cooking method. Their family of 8 was happily settled in a 3-bedroom flat on the 3rd floor of a 4-floor apartment building, following the suggestion of a friend of Yang's. Debbie and her husband had moved here in 1975 after their escape from Saigon on a ship which landed in Darwin. Yang had stayed with them while waiting for the rest of the family to arrive from the refugee camp. There were very few boat people around this part of town, and Debbie had persuaded Mother to come along with them when their family decided to leave the East Hills hostel to venture out into the real world. Please move to Top Ryde with us. We would love to have you as our neighbors. We will help you guys in everything we can, like shopping, moving around, getting here and there, doing this and that. Besides, it's a very nice place I've found for you, just across from our building, and we can drop in on each other whenever we feel like it. You're going to love it. There's a high school nearby. Drin and Luke can go there. Very nice area and beautiful people around. After gathering all her courage to move out of their temporary first residence, Mother had not known anywhere else to turn. It was all the same to her. Strange places in a foreign country barely 6 months after their arrival, so she agreed readily. The move was easy. A few garbage bags containing some of their clothes were all they had, most of which were old second-hand clothes and shoes given to them by St. Vincent de Paul Society. Debbie had a Ford wagon, and they all got in together. All 9 people and some garbage bags fitted in easily, as they were all tiny and skinny. Their language skill in English was as meager as their possessions, but the odd family of Vietnamese boat people had dared to venture into a suburb just 12 kilometers from Sydney and had hoped to blend in without knowing the effect of their idiosyncrasies. Their culinary oriental custom of using garlic in almost every dish inadvertently brought about disaster in their first attempt to start a new life in a Western society in the 1980s. Little did they know that Australians were not used to exotic cooking methods. Adventurous recipes or aromatic spices were unheard of at the time, or unpopular, and most of them despised garlic and its smell, considering it as intolerable or antisocial. The sisters experienced their first intimidating encounter with the upstairs neighbor on day one. What a shock to the teenagers. One afternoon, carrying on their task as usual, the pair were jovial and chatty after a day at school. Kim was in her matriculation course in Granville Technical College, and Drin was in year 11 at the local high school. Everything was new and mystifying. Sometimes it could become terrifying, and they were all very shy and very timid. They were struggling to stay afloat with everything so different and peculiar coming in on them from every angle. Trying to speak English was hardest of all, as they were often frustrated at their inability to get their message across. Coming home in the afternoon was relaxing. They could switch to their mother tongue animatedly, speaking Vietnamese with each other at last, happy in each other's company in a familiar setting where they felt a sense of belonging. On that day, the pair had prepared everything, and it was Drin's turn to cook. As usual, she threw a couple of pressed raw garlic cloves into the hot frying pan and used a spatula to mix them around. To her disappointment, the garlic browned quickly in the overheated oil and turned it to charcoal. Looking over her shoulder, Kim commented coolly, "You're burning the garlic, Drin." Then she helped her sister by pouring the diced pork into the pan. Immediately, an acrid smell of burnt garlic in hot oil and light smoke was circling in the small kitchen, looking for a way out. Kim went to the windows and opened them wide to let the smoke out, while Drin sprinkled a spoonful of fish sauce and sugar into the pan to taste. The distinctively fishy smell, blended with garlic and caramelized sugar, quickly rose upward and escaped through the windows, out into the open air. What a horrible aroma! The pair did not know that it would start the battle between them and the neighbor upstairs. On top of occupying an overcrowded unit, having mismatched furniture, wearing second-hand clothes and oddly outdated shoes, displaying Oriental features and speaking in haltingly accented English, now came garlic and fish sauce. What a combination! Just when Drin was about to pour some more fish sauce into the pan to taste again, they heard frantic knocking on their door. They were even more surprised when a woman's voice on the other side started yelling in English, "Open the door! Open up!" Her knocking grew louder and more demanding every minute. Glancing at each other, the sisters were frightened by the urgency of the woman's voice. Knowing that they had to speak English to whoever was on the other side made it worse. "What happened? What did we do? What is it?" they were whispering in Vietnamese. "Why is somebody yelling at our door?" Drin asked her sister, a little quiver in her voice. "What does she want?" "I don't know. What do we know?" Kim was equally frightened. There was some more banging, and the woman shouted louder this time, "Open the bloody door, you fools!" Both sisters stood still, not knowing how to react. The pan was still simmering on the stove, and the aroma of garlic and fish sauce kept filling the flat. They could tell that the woman was losing patience as she kept banging on urgently. "What are you cooking in there? It's disgusting! Come upstairs and smell it yourself!" They exchanged eye contact. Both were reluctant to move toward the door, seeing that the person was angry. Even with little English, they could understand that she did not like the smell at all. They were puzzled by the situation and could not fully comprehend her anger and frustration. Cowering with fear in their kitchen, they wondered what was wrong with their cooking. That was the normal way they cooked back home, and they thought they could do the same here. What disaster had they caused? "Why is she angry with us?" Kim whispered. "How are we going to speak to this person?" Drin asked her sister, also whispering, afraid that the stranger on the other side of the door might overhear them and charge in. Nobody else was home but the two of them. One was 18 years old and the other just turned 17. In the end, both agreed to approach the door and open it together. Hands on her wide hips, red face puffing with short breaths, as if she had run a marathon, the woman fired a string of sentences in rapid English at them once the door was open. leaving the sisters even more frightened. Drin stepped closer to her sister, using Kim's body as a shield to block out the stranger's angry face and body language. They could pick out a few random words in her vocabulary, indicated that she was upset and threatened to inform the landlord of their filthy habit. "It's disgusting and smelly what you're cooking in there. How could you eat something like that?" Kim apologized softly. "I'm sorry, we're sorry. Sorry." She did not know what else to say. It was as much as she could do to muster all her courage to speak for the two of them. The woman fired some lengthy sentences in English before stomping off upstairs, her long skirt billowing in her wake. Dren wondered if she might step on the hem and slip off the stairs, fall face down, and break her nose at any moment. She looked on disappointedly when nothing happened and the woman disappeared around the curve. That was the first time. After debating for a short while, they thought the culprit was the fish sauce. It must be the fish sauce that made her so angry with us. Perhaps we shouldn't use too much next time. Kim concluded. They thought they had found a solution to appease their neighbor. Of course, they were worried, sick, and nervous about what had happened. "Perhaps we shouldn't open the windows," Drin suggested. After that, they made sure that all the windows were tightly closed before starting to cook their meal, preparing their ground as if launching into battle. Soon they realized it was also the smell of garlic that triggered the antagonism. "Have you closed all the windows yet?" Kim asked. "Yes, madam." Luke would click on his heels and salute like a sentry. "The bathroom too?" Drin insisted. "Of course. All is clear. Just count on me, generals. The woman will be pleased. Trust me," Luke reaffirmed. In their whispered discussions, they had nicknamed their neighbor as the woman ever since. Confident with the all clear, Kim tossed a couple of garlic cloves into the hot oil for a fried rice dish. To their puzzlement and horror, even with all the windows shut, there were steps running hurriedly downstairs and more banging and yelling as before, and then more sincere apologizing. "Sorry, very sorry, we're sorry," V smiled sheepishly and uttered the well-learnt phrase. As a last resort, V followed Debbie's suggestion and bought a can of super strong lavender air freshener in a nearby supermarket, and everyone thought that would solve their dilemma for good. "Surely this will eliminate all odors," V declared with conviction. They were all very tired and nervous with banging and yelling every time they were about to cook their dinner. It must end somehow. How futile it seemed. The distinctive garlic aroma was difficult to mask, and it escaped upwards, inevitably creeping into the woman's nostrils. The law of physics did not help by letting vapor rise upwards, not vice versa. It was sheer bad luck that they were living a floor below their difficult neighbor, and there seemed nothing they could do except stop using garlic and fish sauce in their cooking. It was a simple solution, but they could not think of it then because it had always been their way before. They wished there were different ways to cook without offending their neighbor, and they did not know any other but their traditional method. It was all because of garlic, with its history of use for 7,000 years and its heavy influence in Oriental culinary recipes. Until today, when they decided to go for broke, stubbornness had arisen in the girls, and they wanted to test themselves with the challenge. They were still scared stiff and shaking with fright every time they heard the frantic knocks, and their hearts still jumped out of their chests in anticipation. But they had made up their minds. Dreading it just as much as ever, they decided to remain silent behind the door, refusing to open it and avoiding the abuse that they did not fully comprehend. "If we're going to do it, just be quiet and don't answer the door. That's all, Trin," Kim told her sister. "She'll come down soon enough if we're going to do that, I know." Trin said. "So what? Let her knock," Kim declared stubbornly. As soon as the cloves of garlic hit the frying pan, the girls expected the usual banging on their door, and they waited patiently. The aroma of garlic was whirling upward through the kitchen window, and as if on cue, they heard footsteps running hurriedly down the stairs. Thump, 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 thump. Knock, 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 knock. The sisters smiled defiantly at their daring act, but they lacked the courage to open their door to confront their difficult upstairs neighbor.